Did Santa bring you everything you wanted him to bring? Why am I saying this so creepily? Welcome to this post-Christmas not-so-common podcast. It's Christmas time has passed. Depression setting in. December 26, 2018. I'm Pat Country. Of course, you know that. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't listen to this, or you would have avoided this. So you're not hearing this if you didn't like me. I'm getting way too meta already. So anyway, this is going to be a somewhat quick podcast. It's also somewhat act as like a 2018 recaps / 2019 plan going forward. I don't know. I haven't done like a channel update in a while. Sort of gotten away from that in recent years slightly. But my cell phone died though, which I know it's first world problems literally. Even though the second world probably has cell phones too at this point. Maybe a little bit of third world, but it's mostly a first world problem. And it just died. Like 2-year-old phone. I think it got some moisture in it. Won't get into that how, but it got wet. Probably at some point and got moisture in it. And a little bit. But it was like days after that happened where it just died. I went from charging, it just died out. And the problem with it is I thought I had backed up all the contacts. There's like a Verizon backup app and for your contacts. And I'd done that, I think like a year and a half, 2 years ago. I hadn't done it recently, so I lost contacts from this past year. So people I'm working with, collaborators, things like that, if you don't hear from me for a while, that's why. Feel free to text me in a few days once I have a new phone and I'm up and running again. So I'm on like a backup burner phone right now, which is terrible. It's an Android device that, I'm just not used to it. Plus, it's a slower phone. It's a few years old. But anyway, so the problem with not backing this stuff up, and then I didn't back up my pictures either. I don't believe in the cloud. It gets hacked into, and then you have, all of a sudden, you got, naughty pics of Pat online, in the next fappening. I don't want that to happen. But the problem is we're so tied to our phones now in everyday life. And in particularly that phone, just because, for example, I did this last minute sort of thing. Instead of working on a new punk video, I figured I'd take a day off and work on, re-rendering all my Christmas specials and putting them on Twitch. And I did this Twitch day marathon, twitch.tv/ was it Country Code, CONTRI, and that's my Twitch channel, which I rarely do anything with. But I decided to do like a Christmas marathon, just the same way the Christmas Story plays on TBS for 24 hours. So 9 episodes, 8 or 9 episodes, something like that. And then I was on my computer, my main computer now, and it asked me for my Google Authenticator to log into my Twitch account. So when you're logging into a new device where you haven't logged in before, it'll ask to authenticate to make sure that it's not getting hacked into. And that's on my iPhone, that app. So I panicked because I was like, oh shit, that's not good. Because then I wouldn't know if I couldn't access my account. I couldn't even change it to a new phone number, my burner phone. I'd be totally screwed. Thankfully, I was logged into my laptop already on Twitch, so I was able to upload those videos and schedule it. And a whole 100+ unique people that watched that marathon, be thankful that I was logged into that. And then, like I said, there's some contacts I don't have. Losing the videos and pictures. I just went to the zoo less than a couple weeks ago. And, losing those pictures is going to suck. I actually called someone to see if they could, fix the phone. And they said that most likely not. There wasn't a huge amount of damage inside, but there was enough that, the motherboard might be shot. And unfortunately, the motherboard is where the memory is on an iPhone. I don't know why they don't have it separated out. And I don't know why they don't allow you to do a little memory card like an Android device. Apple likes their products locked down. That's the one huge grievance against Apple. Everything else I don't mind. They're overpriced, yes, but they make a solid device, nice UI and things like that nature, nice GUI, but locking that out is bad. So I might have to go to like some forensic guy to get all the pictures, and not just that, it's like all your old text message history is tied to that, and all your app, not your app data, thankfully. Most of your app data does not exist locally. It's tied to your account. So that's the one good news about if your phone totally dies and you can't revive it or go to the store and have it transferred to a new phone, which in this case I'm not. I'm just buying a slightly used phone and just transferring out my SIM card to a new phone. I'll be able to, get in, but I won't have my pictures. I won't have my apps download. I'll have to remember all the apps I have. It's like, oh my God, what scanner app did I pay for? But that's the good news, is that you don't have to repay for all your apps that's tied to your Apple account. Yay, small miracles, right? Yeah, so it just sucks because it throws your life for a loop, and then I couldn't, I couldn't, wish anyone a happy birthday, text or call. I'm sure if I went into my text history in my Verizon account, I'd see like all these texts from people, their numbers doesn't say the name next to it, and so people are like, Pat's an asshole. He didn't text you back Merry Christmas, on Christmas. Did I say happy birthday before? No, Merry Christmas. I don't know. My mind's all scattered with this. Losing this phone is like the just the gut punch that was the end of 2018, because 2018 started harrowing and finally got decent for me like the middle of the year, and it's gotten better as it's gone along. But this is like the one punctuation mark that could define 2018 for me, would be losing my phone and lost to the annals of time. But the one weird thing that happened on Christmas Eve is that, like an hour before my cell phone died, I texted my sister and said, we're in a FaceTime with the family because she's out in Pennsylvania with my parents, and so I couldn't do that. So I was freaking out because I couldn't go back this year, and so FaceTiming is the second best thing. You get to see everyone and talk to them. So I had to jump through hoops in order to do the FaceTime because first of all, my sister. So I get my burner phone. So now I got to remember what is my sister's phone number. So thankfully, I go online to my Verizon account. There's a bunch of contacts in there. Not all of my contacts. I don't have them for like the past year, I think. So I see my sister's phone number. I text her. I said, okay, can you download like Viber or some other app in order to... She says, I don't know what my iPhone Apple account is to download a new app. I'm like, okay, fine. So the next step is then I have to then find FaceTime on an Apple device that's not mine. So thankfully, I use my MacBook Air, but I never boot into the Apple side. I always boot into the Windows side. So I reboot into the Mac side of that for the first time in like a year, probably, or close to a year. And I don't use anything in there, but there's a FaceTime software you can put in someone's phone number and FaceTime. So I log in, and then the Wi-Fi is not coming up. Then I remember that I changed my Wi-Fi system because I got the Eero system now. So all new. I have an all new modem. So I had to redo that. It's a new network name. I kept the same password, but that password was saved on like the little text file app on my iPhone. Because I figured, if someone asks me, I just bring up the little notes section on my iPhone. I'll tell them the Wi-Fi password. So I didn't have it written down anywhere anymore because I'm an idiot. I thought I even had it saved on my own computer, like on the desktop, and I didn't have it. So now I'm like, this is the worst fucking day ever now. Because my sister's going to think I'm an idiot or I'm an asshole, whatever else. And my parents will be disappointed. So I went to like this semi-enraged, determined like mind meld of myself to figure out and visualize what my Wi-Fi password was. And it's like a 10-digit password. What is it? It's like, 8 to 10 words and letters. And I managed to remember it on the first try. I just looked in my mind. I'm like, okay, I sort of like visualized what it was on the notes section. And I was like, okay. And I typed it in and it kicked in. I'm like, okay, great. And then so I managed to FaceTime. So that's what technology does to you. You don't remember anyone's phone number. Because why did dial numbers ever again? Hell, you don't have to even press any numbers. You just tell Siri, hey Siri, dial this number for me, and it'll do it. And then your Wi-Fi code and everything else is attached to a single device that your life runs on. I don't know who's trying to get in touch with me the past few days. I have no idea. There's business things going on as well, and people out there, just email me if you're trying to get in touch with me, or direct message me. So it'll get fixed within a few days. A new phone should be on its way. And I didn't feel like paying $500. Like a new iPhone's like $1,000 for the latest one, like $1,200, something like that for the best iPhone. When iPhones first came out, people thought it was insane that they were like $300-$400. They thought that was nuts. And now it's like, you can get a 4-year-old iPhone for $300 or $400, which I ended up doing, a slightly used one. I think I spent like $250 on, which was like the best deal I could find. Literally a day before eBay did their 10% off sale. Thank you, eBay, for that, just to rub salt in the wound a little bit right there. But the cell phone stuff just bothers me on a level, not because it actually happened. I mean, I guess I was careless with the phone, and I'm lucky that I've never had a cell phone fail before this. I've had cell phones now for 14 years. This is the first time one's actually went out and actually failed like this. But the fact that I know I'm just so tied to it and I can't do anything about it for the rest of my life. It's the device for everything. It authenticates who you are for some programs, and it has all your loved ones in there, and it has your pictures and your videos that I'm an idiot for not backing up. I thought it was backed up when you connect to your computer and the iTunes app. It didn't. It sounded like you had to go through some steps and processes, and there you go. So there you have it. So I'll be back out with my new used iPhone soon enough, and then I can get on the rest of my life. That would be fun. So year in review, real quick before I get into Christmas stuff and Santa Claus and things like that. This has been a very tough year, and it started with the fact that late last year I moved into Castle Country. I know you're tired of hearing about that, but that's pretty much dominated my life the past year. Moving into my first house and moving and selling my old condo, and I went through a breakup at the beginning of the year. Not a good breakup at all, but it had to happen. It was good that it happened for both our sakes, and just a lot of stress from 2016, from the beginning of 2016, finishing the book and all the drama of releasing the book and doing that circuit. 2017, still getting the book out, going through a reprint of the book, and then other things happening. Looking for a house was like a 5 to 6 month process before I settled on a house. And while this is all going on, I'm still doing 10 conventions a year, and I'm still putting out originally one podcast twice a week, then one podcast every week at the beginning of 2017. This podcast has been going on for almost 2 years now already. And it's just been a ride, and then fixing up the house, moving all my games, closing out my storage unit. Thankfully, not too many things were broken in the move or lost, like when I came over from Jersey and lost my Nintendo Power Tips cassette tape. Just things like that going on, helping out with other side projects, consulting with a convention, helping, with that, still putting out NES Punk episode now and then, and any other drama along the way that I'm forgetting about. And just a lot that has gone on in this year in particular. It didn't, once we got to November in a certain event, it got a little tougher, but that's okay. This year has taught me, thankfully, to slow down a little bit and to just take a breath and and know that I can't push myself at the rate that I could do it previously. And that's not healthy. That mental health, not that I ever took mental health for granted, but I don't think I think I overestimated my strength in order to get through some of these rough patches. I usually was good at absorbing all these hits. And like the past year, I mentioned before, and this isn't like, oh God, look how great Pat is. No, this is a warning to myself that the NES Marathon last year in 2017, I closed in my house literally, the day before the marathon. So I had all this drama going on, planning the marathon, going to Portland Retro Gaming Expo, dealing with getting this loan, dealing with getting this house, termite tented and getting approved and things of that nature, and negotiating and setting up hopefully the move and things like that in this tight span. And this is right before the holidays. And all that, setting up the charity marathon and doing that. And then I couldn't even enjoy the fact that I, a major life accomplishment, buy my first house. And then I go right into this marathon event. And right after that, I go right into, doing the STAME events video, which I should have postponed. That was stupid to do that. Then I got sick for a week, which I didn't think I talked about at the time, where I got really sick for a week. And then I got to move and pack. And then I, go through the holiday season. And then that's the start of a breakup that happens in early January. And then it just was so much that, I turned into a zombie, at least in my own mind. And I think that what other people saw, you probably even saw on the podcast a little bit, but I was probably good at hiding it. First, 4 months of the year, I was a zombie. I was just barely functioning, barely getting along with things and not thinking clearly. The fact that I've done more organization in my place here, I've done more accumulative organization the past month or month and a half versus the first 6 months of the year. The fact that it took me months and months and months and months to, establish my LLC when it should have taken a short amount of time to get me up and running and do my payroll. Things like that, just acting very slowly on a lot of stuff. I think I got more focused once I got to June. It was a 10-year anniversary of my YouTube channel. That sort of put things in perspective about where I came from versus where I am. And I did that, that Not So Common podcast about the 10-year anniversary from my parents' place outside Too Many Games in June, and just pondering the journey I've been on, I think helped. And focusing on doing that 10th anniversary video, which was the only Pat the NES Punk video this year. There might be one if I boot my ass, another one before the end of the year. But that helped a lot too, I think. Getting back to the roots, so to speak, of where the channel came from. Even though people say, oh, Pat, what happened to these videos? I thought this was a retro game channel. There would be no channel left, at least if it wasn't for this podcast. I would not have had a channel. The channel would have died out, around the time this podcast started in 2013. It would have died or would have been like, just a hobby channel where you might have seen me once every 2 months do a video and that's it. And some of you might prefer that, but then I can't live off it. I can't make it a career. I couldn't have, focused on doing an NES guidebook on the side, now a Super Nintendo guidebook, and maybe future books and other ventures that I'll talk about. There's a lot of stuff coming up in 2019 that some I can talk about, some I can't right now, which is why I'm excited for 2019, because 2018 was sort of like the table setting year, so to speak. It was sort of the year where, okay, it's life upheaval, which started in 2017 towards the end. Life upheaval. This is like a new chapter. You're going to keep a lot of the old, but you're going to shed a little bit, but now you're going to add more going forward. And that's going to be, it's exciting and fun, but 2019 is going to be a very, I think, knock on wood, shake the snow globe, a very good year professionally, hopefully personally as well. And then we'll see what grows from there. Yeah. 2 podcasts, YouTube channel, video series. Super Nintendo book is going to come out next year. There's an independent video game that I'm executive producing that I haven't really spoken about that much, but that'll be news next year as well. There might be another independent game that I'm a part of in some way. That's sort of on the periphery, though. That's not going to happen anytime soon. There's an outside business venture outside of the YouTube and podcasting stuff that I might be getting into. There's a documentary that'll be coming out next year that I'm creative consulting on and helping to executive produce there as well. So there's a lot of things happening. There's another thing I can't talk about happening as well. So this was a table setting year of setting all these things up. I had a big Wired article come out. I keep forgetting to have it. And that came out like, late April? Was it April 1st, April 2nd, around there? It came out March 30th. And it was interesting because that was an article that some people took negatively as, look at this guy, it described me as, like middle-aged. And I guess you can consider 38 middle-aged. Who knows? But it's just, to paint it like I didn't know where my career was going. And that's not, I'm not putting the author of the article down, because I consider the author somewhat of a friend, being that I spent so much time with them the past couple of years in order to write that story. Because originally there was going to be one written about me a few years ago. But some people looked at it as sort of depressing, but I don't think it's depressing at all. I think the article was like the snapshot into my life, but it obviously didn't tell the whole story. Even then it didn't. I'm not a YouTuber. Like, that's not what I am. Yes, I'm on YouTube, yes, but when people say, oh, you're a YouTuber, you're that, and it's like, well, no, YouTube is one of the things I do out of several things. And that's just the reality of it. You have to accept it, whether that's good or bad. When I think of a YouTuber, I think of someone that they're on YouTube. That's their 95% source of income, and that's 95% of what they do for their entertainment to get themselves out there. That's not me at all. So whether it's more production I go into, whether it's more streaming, that's actually the one thing I regret. I really overestimated the amount of time I'd have. I promised to start streaming back in June, July, and said I'm definitely going to do it. I didn't have time. I just couldn't. I'm working on a Super Nintendo book, and I'm still trying to finish that up for next year, and then the Kickstarter and do that things. There's just no time for it. These one-off little stream things I did, like for the 10th anniversary, I streamed the NES Punk 10th anniversary video. I live premiered it there. And then the 5th anniversary podcast, which again, that happened around the same time as well. That was a couple months later in August. So I was this is an interesting looking back year. I announced the end of Flea Market Madness eventually to come. I have, about 13 more episodes to, or 17, whatever it is to edit. I have to do that. Ask Frank is no longer around. The Frank crates, we might do one more and then close that out. I just don't have time for all of these different ventures. And this is the evolution of sort of the career on YouTube and off. And that's fine. You should accept the change that's coming. especially if it's positive and you see things moving forward. You don't want to keep just, I don't want to be like other YouTubers and be stuck to a ecosystem that can change on a whim, like it did for many of us around April, May, where all of a sudden, a lot of people, myself included and others, they saw like a 25-30% reduction in views automatically just because the algorithm changed. And a lot of the older videos that were like, the sleeper hits that always got watched and viewed were no longer, I guess, being recommended to people. And that happened to me. It happened to other people. And that sort of bled over into the new videos. I won't say who, but someone that's a dear friend of mine I've worked with before was saying that, yeah, I put out a new video and it got like maybe, a quarter of the amount of views that it typically would have done the same as that video 2-3 years ago. That's just the reality of the situation. And you can't fight it. Yes, you can whine about it, but it doesn't really help to do that. You just move on to other things that you are drawn to, that you enjoy, that you could think would benefit from your time being contributed to them. And that's what's happening in my career as well. But I can still do these podcasts. So that's why, if it wasn't for this podcast, I wouldn't have this career. The podcast made it simpler for me to keep a presence on a YouTube platform while also building a platform off of YouTube. I think a lot of the people watching this on YouTube won't realize that a chunk of people, more people will listen to this without the video or just about the same amount versus watching it, unless it's a weird one. Unless it's someone I get like, say I interviewed like James Rolfe, or I interviewed someone again like Mel Jesus Rocks, where people on YouTube will be drawn to it. But if it's just me and someone you may not have heard of, or someone doesn't have a big YouTube following, or just a random Pat ramble, it might do better audio wise, because there's a whole audio ecosystem, which I'm so glad it's separate than YouTube, because at least audio wise, you're not really controlled by the same sort of algorithms and changing of the wind direction like you would be on YouTube. So that's what's going on. That was sort of my year in review and sort of like looking for what's going to happen. I'm still going to put out the odd NES Punk video, but to me, that's a loss leader at this point. I mean, it just is. Going back to the Stadium Events video, I worked 80 hours on that, 60, 70 hours, somewhere in that neighborhood, and it just, the views do not justify the work. It just doesn't. I can't survive if I just do NES Punk videos. You just can't. Unless I got funding up front through, Patreon or a Kickstarter. I'll do a whole season of 13 episodes for this amount of money. It wouldn't raise the amount to justify it probably. And plus, it's just not as interesting as it probably once was anyway. Not to say that they can't be interesting. It's just in where I am now versus 10 years ago, I'm an entirely different person, different place. And that's only natural. There's not many of these YouTube series that lasted 10 years. TV shows don't last 10 years, let alone 5. So I thought it was amazing that, James has kept the fire to do like the AVGN stuff for, 12 years, just about full time. There you have it. Cool. So year in review. It's going to be exciting next year. Look out for a certain Super Nintendo Kickstarter. That's going to be January. I'm proud to be working with NordVPN. It's what I use to keep myself safe online, and you can too. Now they're offering 66% off a 2-year plan when you go to nordvpn.com/Pat or use code PAC at checkout. A VPN is a virtual private network. Having one is more essential than ever because anything you do online, your info and browsing habits are out there for people to get a hold of. Having a VPN helps mask that. ISPs can track our every move and use our private info to their benefit by selling our browsing habits, even slowing down the sites we visit. With NordVPN, you have access to over 4,000 super speedy servers, and those connections secure your information using military-grade encryption. There's a NordVPN app for your phone, for your laptop, computer. It's available on iOS, Android devices, Mac, and PC. One account lets you protect up to 6 devices. And on top of that, PC Mag made NordVPN, their editor's top VPN choice. So again, for that special offer to protect your internet privacy and 66% off a 2-year plan, go to nordvpn.com/Pat or use code PAT and get going with your secure web browsing today. So this is a story that I want to get into, and this isn't, I'm trying to try my best not to, attack the president, but the president talked to a 7-year-old girl on the phone. It's a photo op, him and Melania are, hanging out in front of a Christmas tree. And the president asked if she believes in Santa, and it was Coleman Lloyd, 7 years old. asked, and they always do this stuff with like NORAD, where some kid will call up NORAD, or NORAD will NORAD's the North American Aerospace Defense Command. That's the one you see in war games when we're going to go to DEFCON 3, where they launch the missiles and see what's going on around the world. So she calls them up, and they always do something like, oh, we're tracking Santa. He's over, he's in Iceland right now. They do weird shit like that with the military. I don't know. It's because kids are cool. People like Christmas, and the Santa thing's kind of cool when you think about the concept. So NORAD patches in this little girl to talk to the president. So the president asks, are you still a believer in Santa? She said, yes, sir. So the president response is, because at 7, that's marginal, right? She said, yes, sir. It turns out afterwards, but she didn't know what the word marginal said. So I'm really not trying. I don't think the president tried to ruin Christmas on purpose, because that would be like, the depths of hell for where your soul is. I don't think he was trying to be craven in his response to this little girl, in order to have her question about why do I believe in Santa when I'm 7? But that's basically what he said. At 7, that's marginal, right? It's saying like how many 7-year-olds believe in Santa, or isn't that, you're barely believing in Santa at 7? That's basically what he was asking her. So obviously the president does not know how to talk to children if that's the way you're going to talk to a 7-year-old who's asking about Santa Claus. Like asking, really, you believe in Santa at 7? Or how many 7-year-olds believe in Santa? That's what he was asking. So he doesn't know how to talk to children. We can probably agree on that's not the best thing to ask a 7-year-old. You might be ruining Christmas for someone, or potentially making a kid cry if they believe in Santa, and that's how they find out they were not. But I don't think he meant to do that. He just doesn't know how to talk to children, which that's a whole other conversation entirely about his personality defects there. But that'll be the least of his concerns going into 2019 for sure. About worrying about Santa Claus. So, but I want to get into that topic from the fact that believing in Santa, at least in my household, it wasn't really, my parents didn't really try to convince me. I definitely didn't believe in Santa by Christmas of 86 when I was 6. I definitely didn't believe in Santa anymore. So before that though, like, yeah, we put out milk and cookies, but I guess not that I was like this genius kid, but I was that kid who always asked questions when they were a kid, who was curious about things. So in my mind, it was just logistically, how the hell does Santa visit every single household in the U.S., not even thinking about the rest of the world where they believe in Santa Claus or have Christianity going on? Not that, well, at this point, Santa Claus has little to do with Christianity. It's all about, commercialism, with Macy's and Bloomingdale's going back. But I just thought, time-wise, if he starts he's got to start at midnight, right? So Santa starts at midnight, Christmas Day, at Christmas Eve midnight, turning into Christmas Day, the 25th. He's got about, you want to give him a good 7 hours before kids start to wake up, before all those presents have to be delivered. That's just a long haul. He's got to get down all those chimneys, put those presents under the tree somehow. He's got to eat those milk and cookies, shoot back up with his magic. Then I'm thinking about, I always thought about as a kid, how many, because we didn't have a traditional fireplace in my household. None of the houses in my neighborhood did. They were all like, the houses built, in the 50s, like those track houses. There's probably a couple of models to choose from. They all were the same split level houses, all traditional, 2-bedroom houses, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath. Some had an upstairs where you can add another bedroom. That's all these houses were. So there was no chimney. Yeah, you all had, you had, exhaust coming out or whatever from somewhere, from your heat and whatever, but you didn't have a fireplace. So you had nowhere to hang your stockings and nowhere for Santa to jump in and then come out. So these are things I thought of as a kid because I was crazy when I was a kid. In between watching Gem and G.I. Joe, I was thinking about stuff like this. So my parents put out milk and cookies when I was younger, when I was like 3, 4, and 5, I believe. And, I wrote I think I wrote a letter once when I was 5. I think I could kind of write when I was 5. But by the time I was 6, my father didn't even try to pretend to care whether or not I should be believing in Santa anymore. Because he'd be said, oh, give me your Christmas list. I'm like, well, is that going to go to Santa? Just give me your Christmas list. Okay. Here's my list for, I want G.I. Joe figures, and I want the G.I. Joe Tomahawk helicopter, And I want before the NES, I want like a Transformer figure or a Chuck Norris figure or whatever else. How did Chuck Norris have figures in the 80s? Well, he was popular then. Anyway, so I knew it hit me though when must have been 86. I think I got that Tomahawk G.I. Joe helicopter. Is that the price tags were kept. I'm gonna say my father, not my mom. My mom probably wanted to try a little bit more. She was always a little more childlike than my father. My father just was too lazy enough to peel off the price tag sticker. So I saw like Bradley's on it, or Caldor, or Kmart, which was like the trifecta of where my parents bought things for me. Besides, Toys R Us, those are like the smaller department stores outside the mall. Bradley's, Kmart, Caldor. Kmart's still around. I think they were bought by Target. But so anyone on the East Coast, when I say Bradley's or Caldor, you're like, oh my God, that comes to mind, because those are those dead sort of like, stores that had everything. They had toys, they had clothes, they had, everything. They're like the smaller version of a Target. That's the best analogy you can say. Target's like the gigantic version of all these regional like the department type stores. So my dad didn't even try. So I was at least smart enough to know, okay, so Santa has elves, or he makes this stuff himself. He's not going to buy these at Bradley's. He's not going to Bradley's and disguising himself to buy presents along with the other people. I kind of figured that probably not a possibility. But I think held that hope for a while that maybe Santa brought certain presents and then your parents and relatives bought others, because you got stuff from your grandparents. On Christmas Day, you would go to your grandparents for dinner or see your extended relatives, and you would get presents from them. Your uncle or your aunt would give you presents, and your grandparents would, and you realize that, okay, that's coming directly from them. So I think I held that hope for a year that there was like this batch of presents that Santa got you, and then there's a batch that your parents did. At least I think that's what they tried to do, but then they didn't even try that, so they just gave it up. But I think believing in Santa is a critical part of Christmas, regardless of your religion or what you bring your kids up for. Just because it just ties into the whole magical, happy feeling. You want there to be some weird, overweight, gigantic elf man out there that delivers presents to you and breaks and enters into houses once a year and just brings joy to kids. You want to believe that because it's just you want to get away from the horror show that is the world at some point in time. And that's a good way to do it. You believe in this magical, used to be a saint. They don't mention the St. Nicholas thing anymore ever, but based upon a saint. They don't do that. But jolly old St. Nick, that's sort of been lost in the shuffle. Over the decades, they probably tried originally, then probably by the 30s, they're probably, okay, well, we're going to stop this. We're going to put this guy in every street corner for the Salvation Army, just stick him into Bloomingdale's and have kids sit on this guy's lap, and we're not going to associate it with Christianity that much anymore. Which is why it was always funny that South Park started on Jesus fighting Santa, because they acknowledge that, hey, it's a holiday about the birth of the foundation of one of the world's largest religions, but that's been lost to some guy in a red suit wearing a red hat like this. It's just been lost. 100 years from now, 200 years from now, people might even forget that. Anyway, it's getting semi-depressing to think about that, but that's just the way it works out. Christmas is fun. Santa's a fun concept. I love Christmas time. I love the songs. I love the whole feeling, and I love eating the Italian Christmas stuff, which we'll get into. I love FlexPro Meals. They're a meal delivery company that sends healthy pre-made meals to your doorstep. Their goal isn't to give you just salad, but epic recipes like game day chili, breakfast burritos, smoked brisket mac, and more. These are entrees you may have grown up on, but they make healthier versions of. Makes it a lifestyle choice. You get these meals, you eat them, you don't have to worry about preparing them for yourself, and you have peace of mind that they're not just yummy, but they're nutritious. Now, FlexPro Meals has a weight loss fat trimmer plan and a lean muscle plan. It's a larger portion. That's what I get for a little more per meal. Some of the most popular entrees, like I said before, smoked brisket mac, game day chili, breakfast burrito, chicken Alfredo, and the list goes on and on. Me and Ian talked about they have that deep dish breakfast pizza, which is eggs and sausage. Oh, it's delicious as well. For 20% off your first order, use code PAT when you visit flexpromeals.com. Again, that's 20% off using code PAT at flexpromeals.com. They also have nice little protein-packed desserts you can order there, and you can select how many meals per week. You can skip weeks. It's totally up to you. Again, go to flexpromeals.com and then use code PAT at checkout. So we'll do some questions here. before I get going. And I'm doing a post Christmas yoga to burn off some of these calories. This is from at the Lazy Shell 42. Video games that you associate with Christmas memories. Like I had the flu in '93 and had to stay home from Christmas dinner, but stayed in bed playing Kirby's Dream Land. Oh, you were lucky to have that. Have a Game Boy at least, unless you meant Kirby's Adventure. But anyway, I associate, for horrible reasons, Zelda 2. You probably heard the story. I wrote about it in Insert NES Guidebook and talked about it in the CU podcast. Let's go about. I was supposed to get it for Christmas of '88, and it didn't arrive until April of '89. It didn't arrive from Sears. Ordered that from the Sears catalog. So I always, for the wrong reasons, associate Christmas with that. But I also got what was the other one I got around Christmas that my parents tried to hold back for me? Oh, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out! I think I got for one of the Christmases. Might have been as well for... No, it wasn't for 87. God, I think I think actually Zelda 2 was the only NES game I got technically for Christmas. And then I remember, I think that's the only one I got. And most I got for my birthday or just save my allowance for on the side. But what I do associate more so, if you want to call them video games, those Tiger LCD games, I was so excited for those as a kid. And one year, it must have been 89 or 90, probably 90s when the Tiger started to get more of the licensed properties. 89, they were still doing the generic like baseball, football, pinball, karate, like fun handhelds, but they weren't like licensed IPs, like video game properties. But at Christmas, I think of 90, I got both Double Dragon, the Double Dragon handheld, and Ninja Gaiden. Games that I loved. I didn't own the NES version. My parents got me those. And I just remember getting up in the morning and everything was wrapped. Forget this. Everything was wrapped in this gold. My parents would like color coordinate the presents for who, what kid they were by what color the wrapping paper was. So all my presents that year were wrapped in gold. And so they were under the tree and I could see the shape because they were in a blister pack, a big blister pack, the Tiger LCD handhelds. They're in this blister pack. So I got so excited because that's what I knew exactly what they were. And I played those LCD games so much. My parents didn't want it. I'm not sure they could afford it, but I never had a Game Boy because the Game Boy was $90 and the games were like $30 each. So they couldn't afford that. But they can get me a $10, $15, LCD handheld. That's the way they looked at it. And they were fun. Car rides, car trips. You brought them to your cousin's house or your friend's house to play, even though they made fun of you because they had a real Game Boy or they had a real Game & Watch and you had a Tiger LCD. So those are the best memories I have when it comes to video games around Christmas was that. Besides getting the Super Nintendo, Christmas of '91, was bought for me like a couple days afterwards for my own money. Anyway, this is from at Blood Ocean 07. Did you go out and look at people's Christmas lights? I usually do. I enjoy the Christmas lights. I get a kick out of it as a kid. My parents used to put up a little bit of lights, but not that much. There's a street that's not too far from me where every year most of the houses usually put on a pretty grand display. Not as good as it was when I first moved here, where it was like literally every house. Now it's like 60% of the houses because some people probably moved or got sick of it, of competition with their neighbors. But it's one of those things where people know to go to this street and they stop and they look at every single house and they allow people to walk up to the front door. It's one of those sort of deals where it's an event to go to. And I'll probably go to it in a couple days before New Year's Eve because they keep it going until New Year's Day. So I love seeing now they have inflatable Santas and they have animatronic deers and things like that. And I saw one that was like a window shop set up and they had one of those bay windows and they had all the toys and stuff and a stuffed Mickey Mouse set up. But they also had moving Santa and Santa's Mrs. Claus were moving around and it was really well done. Really well done. So I get a kick out of that stuff. It's fantastic. Worst Christmas present ever. I'll do that last. That's a funny one, I think. Okay. This is from at E.T. Rod. How is your Italian Catholic roots influenced the way you celebrate Christmas and New Year's Eve? Well, New Year's Eve isn't really affected by being Italian or growing up Catholic. That's not really much, except you have to go to Mass. New Year's Day is a holy day of obligation, as it's called. Let me just make sure that's correct. that it's New Year's Day. Yes. So the holy days of obligation, there's like 6 or 7 outside of the Sundays you have to go to every week. There's about 6 or 7 days throughout the year you have to go to mass for, or else it's a moral sin and you get sent to hell. That's what you're taught when you're an 8-year-old in grade school. So you have Christmas Day. Okay, here's the holy days of obligation for dummies. This is a great thing, because I forget them. January 1st, the Feast of Mary, the Mother of God. January 1st is a holy day. So that affects you, because then when you get up, if you're up late, when you're up till midnight, when you're like 6, 7, 8 years old, that's like, you might as well stay up the whole night at that point, because I was usually in bed by like 9 or 8. So you have to go to church. January 1st, Feast of Mary, Mother of God. You got to give up for OG Mary. 40 days after Easter Sunday is Ascension Thursday. That's a holy day. That's for Jesus. After he rose from the dead, he said, all right, guys, I'm out. Take care of this stuff yourself. I'm back up to heaven. August 15th, the Assumption of Mary into heaven. Mary's like, okay, everyone, I'm out too. I'm not going to die. I'm just going to go up and enjoy my son. So that's August 15th. All Saints Day, the day after Halloween, a day after another holiday. This is the one I usually forget about. The other ones are usually in my head a little bit. December 8th is the Feast of the Immaculate Conception. So for some reason, you pre-celebrate Christmas on December 8th. It's part of like the whole, like in Catholicism, you have like 4 weeks of celebration leading up to Christmas. So that's like the first Sunday leading up to that, or something like that. I forget. But so December 8th is one I always forget. And obviously Christmas, you have to celebrate. Now, my mom used to always try to drag me to Mass on Good Friday. But I don't think Ash Wednesday is definitely not a holy day of obligation. My mom would drag me Ash Wednesday, the start of Lent. Is that 40 days before Easter, whatever it is? My mom would try to drag me for Ash Wednesday to get ashes. Holy Thursday, which is the Thursday before Sunday, no, that's where they had the Last Supper. No one really cared about that much. But then Good Friday, my mom used to drag me to that. You wanted to go around noon, because that's when like Jesus was supposedly hung on the cross, was like around noon. And so you would go to Good Friday Mass, and they cover up Jesus. So Catholicism is the only Christian sect where in church you see the crucifix, which is Jesus hung out to die, being tortured on the cross. All other Christian churches, for the most part, I'm not sure about like Greek Orthodox or like Russian Orthodox, but probably the closest to Catholicism, or Eastern Orthodox. And all the other ones, you just see a cross, which represents the resurrection, because Jesus is down from the cross and he's risen again. Catholicism more likes to celebrate the torture and anguish of being alive, and what it means to be a sinner. So you walk in the church and you see Jesus suffering with nails in his hands and feet every Sunday. That's what you grew up with. So they would cover him up with like a shroud or like a blanket, the week before Easter. They would do that. So anyway, those are the 6 holy days of obligation. So this I went off on a tangent, but that's what this podcast is about. I went off on a tangent. But so New Year's Day has nothing to do when it comes to celebrating when you're being Italian, but you have to go to church if you're a practicing Catholic. I'm not a practicing Catholic anymore, though, so I can get away with that. But Christmas, though, come on. Christmas is all about Christmas Eve dinner. If you're Italian, come on. Maron, the food you have. The Feast of the Seven Fish, right? So you're supposed to have, if you're Italian, you're supposed to have at least, it's Feast of the Seven Fishes, they call it. Festa dei Sette Pesci. Also known as the Eve, we always call it the Feast of the Seven Fishes. It's Italian-American celebration of Christmas Eve with dishes of fish and other seafood. So traditionally, if you were Catholic, before Vatican II, you couldn't eat meat on any Friday. I'm not sure people realize that if you're not Catholic. That back until whenever Vatican II was the early 60s, I believe. And that's the point where they said at the Vatican II, where they said, you know what, finally the Mass is going to be in English or your local language. The Mass isn't going to be in dead Latin anymore. Like stuff like that happened with Vatican II. We probably need a Vatican III though. But there had been a Vatican in like 1,000 years plus, so having one was good, I guess. That's where they gather all like the archbishops and people of the world and the church leaders. They go to the Vatican, they hash out the new rules of the church. So that was Vatican II. So they softened the rules after that to say that you can eat meat every Friday, except for Lent, except for the 40 days between Ash Wednesday and Easter. Can't eat fish on Friday. So they at least kept that tradition. So eating fish is a big Italian thing to begin with, though, because it's a Mediterranean and there's a lot of coastal towns. And you go to an Italian restaurant down the street or a pizzeria, you won't find fish usually because that's more based on the Sicilian, more you want to say lower class Italian American. That most of the Italians I came to, the America, some of mine included, were the lower class Italians. They wanted a new opportunity. Thankfully, my great grandfather on my one side who was Italian, I had great grandparents on both sides that were Italian. But on the one side, he built himself up and he started his own business, his own tailoring business. So he got to that middle class and you build the wealth eventually. And that's how it happens with the immigrant story. The great immigrant story in America is usually you're lower class and you build it up for the next generation. The next generation goes to college and so forth and so forth. The American dream, I fucking love it. Land of opportunity. I will swear by that till the day I die. In the U.S., you have the biggest chance for opportunity out of any country probably on the face of the earth. I still maintain that. Some positives to this country still. I'm never gonna say there aren't. But the Feast of the Seven Fishes builds upon that Italian tradition. So in my household, you start with the antipasta, huh? You get the antipasta. You got your bacala salad, which is your cod salad. You have your olive salad that you marinate for. My grandma marinated for a day. You did that, and then you have you got your little prosciutto meat. So we would have meat on Christmas Eve. I guess traditionally you weren't supposed to, but we would have your prosciutto, your fresh mozzarella. You'd have things like that. You'd have, we'd have like sardines and anchovies. This is the starter course, by the way. Some people do like a capicola or a hot ham. We just did the prosciutto. We just did that. We would do the sharp provolone. We would do that. You'd have your fresh bread. You would do that. You'd have your pepperoncini. You would do that. So you'd have this nice soiree. And I'm probably forgetting. Oh, sometimes you do eggplant salad. Frank's sister would traditionally make eggplant salad. And I'd have a little bit of that on Christmas Day. Because I usually celebrate Christmas Day with Frank while I'm out here. So you have a bunch of this stuff that you would go nuts on. So I guess traditionally this started as you would fast the whole day until the dinner, which usually didn't start. The Italian Christmas Eve dinner doesn't start till like 7 or 8 at night. A lot of people don't realize that. It starts late. And it goes till about midnight or longer, depending on how many courses of what you do. So we would start at probably around 7:30. We sit down, we have that first course, which is like 45 minutes to an hour. 45 minutes, want us to say, was that. And then you would give a good like half hour in between to catch up, because that was enough for a meal. You had your salami as well. I forgot about that. So you had all this nice stuff going on. Looking at Wikipedia, they mentioned bacala, salted codfish salad. That's great. Yeah. So, okay, custom of celebrating with a simple fish such as bacala reflects customs in what were historically impoverished regions of southern Italy, as well as seasonal factors. Yeah, southern Italian, Sicily, that's a lot of people that came over to the U.S. in the early 20th century. Calamari, sometimes we'd have calamari as well. Sometimes we'd have squid. We would do squid. Sometimes we would do that as well. But then you get to the second course. The second course part of it, we usually did. I'm looking at the list here. I was Wikipedia for the Feast of the Seven Fishes. For the second course was usually the main fish meal. So for that, we would have sometimes deep fried calamari or some sort of a deep fried cod. We would do either fried fish or we do some sort of grilled shrimp. Sometimes we do both. We do a little bit of fried shrimp. My mom had a little deep fryer, or we do the grilled as well. We did scallops a couple of years. Never did lobster. We would do mussels sometimes. Sometimes we did shrimp cocktail. I'm looking at this list here. So that's, you do like a mix of, yeah, some of these technically shrimp's not a fish. Some of these are mollusks. But then you moved into, that would tie into linguine. So we would traditionally do linguine with white clam sauce. Most of the years, white clam and not red. So the white is more oil-based. It's tasty. You throw the oysters in there, maron. And so that was your like second course that you would have. That by that point you are struggling because the antipasta is a meal even of itself. So you would have that. You'd have some sort of fish dish, some linguine clam sauce, and sometimes you'd have a combination of calamari, or something else with it, or shrimp, whatever. Octopus salad, I think we might have had one year. I'm looking at this list, but I don't remember it. Then you'd have that. By this point in time, it should be about 9:30, 10 at night, if not later. Might be 10:30 or so. Then you relax for like 45 minutes at least. You know, you have to clean up all the... My mom used to get all the nice china, the nice plates, the nice silverware. You clean that stuff by hand. You know, usually the men would just walk around or talk. Sometimes the men helped. I would help clean up some stuff. Never liked dishes as a kid, though. Then you go to dessert, which are our Italian pastries. When this is the reason why I already have on in only a few days of eating for Christmas, I probably gained like 7 pounds. So the Italian pastries, even people that are in Middle America know about. Everyone knows about cannolis. We know that. Come on, cannolis. It's sort of a deep fried shell, so to speak, and then you put in, the creamy cheese filling, little shaved pistachios, or you would do a little bit of chocolate chips, or you can go little fruit if you're going Sicilian style. There you have that. But that's not it. You'd have Napoleons, which was a French pastry layered with custard inside. And now that didn't originate in Italy. That's associated as being part of an Italian pastry. You go to any Italian deli, they will have Napoleons there. Napoleons are sort of like French region, European, but Italian as well. I think even in Russia they have them. So you have that. We had butterflies, which are almost like a cupcake style custard topping, but you cannot find them anywhere anymore, unfortunately. I haven't had one in about 12 years, so it's annoying. I even tried calling back east bakeries, finding them. Then you would have other things. Sometimes my dad would buy himself an Italian cheesecake. Now, the difference between traditional cheesecake and Italian cheesecake is Italian cheesecake has the regular cheesecake cheese, but it then also has ricotta, or ricotta, if you want to do the Southern Italian poor dialect, ricotta, which made the Italian cheesecake the richest thing in the world. I could never finish a whole slice. I'd have like 4 bites and want to die. It was so rich. So my father would buy that, traditional Italian cheesecake. Then you'd have struffoli sometimes. Now, struffoli is not in most even Italian bakeries. My sister shipped me out some from East Coast. I only found one Italian bakery that made them in the West Coast, and they no longer make them because no one wants them. So struffoli are small, deep-fried honey balls that are then doused in honey. Deep-fried balls that are doused in honey, like dough balls. They're dough balls, deep-fried dough balls, doused in honey, and usually like jimmies, like colored jimmies, and then there's like a little like candied cherries put on it. It looks heavier than what it is. It's actually light. It's sweet. You can eat like a nice handful of them. You don't feel like you want to die. So then we have that. Then my mom usually makes some sort of a traditional chocolate chip. She does chocolate chip. She does peanut butter half dipped in chocolate. Sometimes my sister would make biscotti. So then you have the cookies on top. Then you'd have the chocolate candies, or it's a mix of like pretzels and nuts, and you throw it in chocolate, you let it cool. Then you have that sometimes. This is all the same dessert, by the way. This is all the same dessert session. So this is like 3 desserts in and of itself. I'm probably even forgetting some things. Rambabi sometimes you would have. That's another Italian one. So then you have like literally 10 different types of desserts. You have to sample at least one of everything, or at least a part. You would do that. And then hopefully not die. Oh, then you have struffoli. Not struffoli. You have a sfriadel, which is hard to pronounce because it's spelled Sfoliatelle. Sfriadel. That's kind of how you say it. We always call it sfriadel because it's easy to say that. So that's a puff pastry that's kind of crusted on the outside. Inside it has nice custard on, like a custard like filling with cakiness. It's soft. Oh, it's so good. And then you can put them in the toaster oven. Then you have the panettone bread, which is like that really yellow, sweet bread with sugar on it, like the high loaf. You have that sometimes. It's insane. So by the time you're done eating this shit, it's like 11:45 at night when you're done with the Feast of the 7 Fishes, which is a whole 5-hour orgy of food. It's literally what my year revolves around, at least what it used to, because it was the main event of eating. You had to prep for that. As I've gotten older, I cannot eat nearly what I used to be able to eat. Like I can't even eat half what I used to be able to eat, unfortunately. So it's more depressing in that way. If I force it, I pay for it more, but oh my God, it's great. But then you have leftovers for like 7 days afterwards. So you have a chance to pack on the pounds for a whole week afterwards. So that's the Feast of the Seven Fishes. And that's the biggest part of being an Italian/Catholic around Christmas. Christmas Day is when you'd have the meat sauce. So Christmas Day, you'd go to your grandma's house or another relative, and then you'd have either stuffed shells, manicotti, baked ziti. Yeah, you'd have like one of those things, some pasta with a cheese in it. Then you'd have meatballs and sausage and braciole and things like that with a salad. That was Christmas Day. Then you get back to your Ginzan roots, as Frank would say. Like you get back to this is what real Ginzans eat. Then, worst Christmas presents ever. Oh, I forgot about one thing. Sorry. Midnight Mass would happen Christmas Eve at 12. So my mom would try to drag me and my sister to Christmas midnight Mass, because then you don't have to worry about getting up after you open up your presents. You don't have to run to church at like 10 o'clock or 9:30. You get out of the way midnight Mass, which is great because you get that nice 45-minute Mass, not hour and 15 or hour and a half long. You get out really quickly, so it's nice. Finally, this is from at Mahomes Goat. Worst Christmas present ever. This one is easy. I was probably 9 years old, maybe 10. My Aunt Jo, may she rest in peace. She died in 2000 and she died 2006. Was it 2006 or 2008? 2006 or 8. I always forget those two. But she died, unfortunately, of a brain aneurysm. 1 year she gave me, and I couldn't hold in my contempt. Unfortunately, when you're a kid, it's hard. I know when you're a kid, you're awful when you get a present you don't like. She got me a blue tracksuit, matching blue with red stripe around the arm and legs, like heavy tracksuit style, sweatpants style, but tracksuit, zippered top, and sweatsuit style bottom. Basically a sweatsuit. What she got me when I was like 9 or 10 years old. And I could not contain my horror of how much I did not like that. Because, first of all, I don't know if it was a clue for me to get chubby little pat into shape, but it didn't work. It just didn't look, it would not be something I would ever would have worn out. When you're a kid, you wear like Jams. Wish Jams made a comeback. I wear Jams tomorrow. You wear Jams or jean shorts as a child were popular. Khaki shorts weren't popular, but denim shorts were. That's what you did when you were a kid. Or you wore just jeans or slacks or whatever. Or Oshkosh by gosh. Now I grew out of that phase by then. So to see like this weird tracksuit was just not something I was expecting. So I remember hanging it up in my haunted room for years, and then I tried putting it on when I was like 13 or 12 years later, and obviously you grew up by then. So my sister, I remember, took a picture of me. I think she took a picture, but my lower end of my gut was like hanging out of it since I had grown up. I could barely fit in the pants. I couldn't fit in the top. So I might have tried wearing that tracksuit one time, that blue workout sweatsuit, really a workout sweatsuit. Might have tried wearing it one time. I felt awful about it. To this day, I felt awful. I think I apologized to my aunt maybe 10 years later about that tracksuit, because it was one of those presents that even my sister knew about that stood out. Like, this was just a totally off present that was not something I would have worn, even if I was a runner or I was working out when I was 9 or 10. It was just sort of a weird space to buy a kid a workout sort of sweatsuit when they were like that young. It just was, I don't know where she found it. I don't know where she came up with the idea. My parents didn't tell her about it. So that sort of stood out as an awful present that, again, rest in peace to my aunt. That was a bad decision though, Aunt. Woo! That was a bad one. And that's it for this Nuts Come podcast. Thanks a lot for keeping up with me this year and supporting me and my endeavors in my online and offline career. It's going to be more offline soon with some endeavors, but it'll be online as well. You can subscribe on iTunes, Podbean, Google Play, your other podcast platform of choice if you'd like. Stitcher is another one. You can like the podcast. You can recommend it to others if you like my ramblings. And if you want to help support me in the Not So Common podcast and my other endeavors, I have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/PatContry. It's not required, of course, but you get some little bonuses there as well. And it just, it's just like a tip jar I treat it as. And 2019 is going to be a great year. You can pre-order if you don't want to wait for the Kickstarter. You can pre-order a certain NES guidebook Well, you can order a certain NES guidebook, but a certain Super Nintendo guidebook at ultimatesnes.com. Thanks so much, everyone. I really appreciate you sticking along in 2018. Let's look forward to a very positive, odd number year, the last year of the 2010s, 2019. Oh, we're all getting old. I'll see you later.